So when structural engineers need to know if, like a suspension bridge is actually safe, they don't just sit in an office and stare at the blueprints.
Right. No, that wouldn't work at all.
Yeah, exactly. They run a stress test. They drive these incredibly heavy, fully loaded freight trucks right over the span, apply, extreme pressure, and basically just wait to see where the concrete starts to scream.
You have to push a complex system to its absolute functional limit to find those invisible vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Because until the pressure is really on, you just can't see what's actually holding the structure together or, what's quietly failing behind the scenes.
Which brings us to today. Because looking at our stack of sources for today's deep dive, it feels like the entire globe is currently undergoing this massive simultaneous stress test.
Oh, absolutely, across the board.
Right. And we are pulling all of our insights today directly from the Daily Tech Reader from Thursday, June 4th, 2026. And for you, the listener, our mission today is really to cut through the noise of what just looks like a chaotic news cycle. We are going to explore a world that is undergoing extreme structural shifts.
Yeah, and that's the key.
Right. So from international military alliances to financial markets, right down to the literal physical power grid, fundamental systems are, well, they're fracturing. And they're forcing real-time adaptation.
Right, because to understand what's happening, you have to look past the individual headlines, You have to examine the actual mechanics. We aren't just seeing isolated events here.
No, not at all.
We're watching the underlying logic of global systems change, basically because the load they're carrying has just become way too heavy.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the loudest cracking concrete on the board, which is the geopolitical landscape. We are watching coalitions that started this year completely united now, just visibly splintering.
Yeah, the fractures are huge.
Specifically, I'm talking about the Iran war. Back in February of this year, President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, they jointly initiated this conflict. They were in total alignment.
Completely locked in.
But now, just, a few months later, they are completely at odds over how to actually end it.
Right. And what's fascinating here is to understand why this rift is happening, you really have to look at the mechanics of military alliances. Initiating a conflict often requires a shared sense of immediate threat, right?
Sure, yeah, you both see the same danger.
Exactly. Ending one, however, requires shared long-term objectives. And right now, Trump is aggressively pushing for a negotiated settlement with Tehran. He's pointing to progress on a Lebanon ceasefire.
Right.
But Netanyahu is taking the exact opposite stance. He's pushing for sustained, intense military pressure and potential new streaks.
Okay, wait, I want to pause for a second here just to make our baseline absolutely clear for everyone listening.
Yeah.
We're looking at highly charged political realities right now. And our goal today is not to take a side or, validate a specific politician or debate the morality of any of these actions.
Right. Absolutely not.
We are strictly taking the data provided in our sources and impartially mapping out how these structural shifts are functioning.
And if we look strictly at the data, there is a massive disconnect between the rhetoric being broadcast and the actual reality on the ground.
Yeah. It's pretty glaring.
Trump claims that Hezbollah hasn't formally rejected his terms for a ceasefire, but critically, Iran has not publicly confirmed that any framework for an agreement is actually in place.
So it's basically one side projecting this imminent resolution and the other side operating as if the conflict is actively escalating.
Exactly.
And the friction is getting deeply personal, too. Trump reportedly called Netanyahu, let's just say, highly unstable over the recent escalation in Lebanon.
Yeah, that quote definitely made the rounds.
Right. And Netanyahu is trying to brush it off, telling CNBC that they can disagree in the morning and act together by afternoon. But, it reminds me of two co-founders of a startup.
Oh, how so?
Well, imagine two co-founders who aggressively launched this high-risk, highly controversial product together. During the launch phase, they were best friends. Totally aligned. But now that the product is live in the market, it's burning through cash, facing immense public scrutiny, and they are realizing they have fundamentally different visions for the exit strategy. One wants to sell and get out right now, and the other wants to double down and bet the whole company.
That's a great analogy. The critical difference being, of course, that the burn rate in your analogy is measured in geopolitical capital and, well, human lives.
Yeah, that is a very heavy distinction.
It is. The Human Rights Monitoring Organization, HR&ANA, is documenting over 1,000 confirmed civilian deaths in Iran since hostilities began in February.
Oh, 1,000.
And that number is recorded despite heavily restricted humanitarian access and a near-total absence of independent journalism in those strike zones. So the global market is reacting to that human cost.
Right. The polling data is wild.
It's historic. A recent 36-country survey shows that 0 nations, literally 0, have a majority viewing Israel favorably right now. And 59% of Americans lack confidence in Netanyahu.
And domestically in Israel.
Also shifting, Israeli polling shows former IDF chief Gadi Eisenkot is now leading Netanyahu in head-to-head preference for the very first time.
And you can see the collateral damage of this rift bleeding directly into the U.S. domestic system, too. I mean, House Republicans are actually teaming up with Democrats on a war powers resolution.
Right. It was incredibly rare.
Super rare. And in the middle of all this, they are fighting the White House over funding a ballroom renovation. I mean, it sounds utterly petty, but why does a minor budget dispute blow up right now, of all times?
What's fascinating here is when a massive external pressure, like managing the fallout of a multi-front war, is applied to a political system, internal alignment shatters.
It just cracks.
Right. The unity required to push through standard day-to-day governance just evaporates.
Yeah.
So you don't just see disagreement on the war. You see the entire legislative machine seize up over, like you said, a ballroom renovation. The system just loses its shock absorbers.
It really does. And we are seeing the system attempt to correct its past assumptions, too. Like, former National Security Advisor John Bolton is pleading guilty to charges related to mishandling classified government info.
Yeah, that just broke.
And we just saw this new peer-reviewed study confirming that the National Guard deployment in Washington, D.C. had absolutely 0 measurable effect on violent crime rates. It's almost like the system is finally admitting that its previous operational theories were completely flawed.
Well, and that realization that these old operational theories are no longer valid. I mean, that is the perfect lens for understanding what happened on Wall Street today.
Oh, for sure. The markets are definitely feeling it.
We are basically witnessing a massive repricing of what actually holds value in the economy.
Because the numbers today were just wild. The Dow Jones hit a record high, but the Nasdaq declined, heavily dragged down by a massive Broadcom sell-off.
Right. It's what analysts are calling a broad market rotation.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of this rotation.
Sure. So for the last couple of years, the market has been entirely dominated by high multiple tech stocks.
Wait, explain high multiple for a second, just so we're all on the same page.
Of course. So a high multiple stock means investors are paying a massive premium for the stock today, but it's based almost entirely on the explosive growth they expect, 5 or 10 years from now.
Right. You aren't buying their current profits, you're buying their future dominance.
Exactly. But right now, driven by the expectation that the Fed will cut interest rates later this year, investors are taking their massive profits out of the speculative tech companies, and they are rotating that money into traditional industrial and financial companies that actually generate steady cash flow today.
But why the sudden loss of faith in tech as a pure growth engine? I mean, tech has been the darling for years.
Because tech is transitioning. It's no longer just a shiny new sector. It is becoming the foundational utility of the traditional economy.
Oh, I see.
Just look at what is happening in the labor market. The college class of 2026 is stepping into the most brutally AI-disrupted job market in history. The traditional entry-level roles, basic coding, data analysis, copywriting, customer service, they are contracting sharply.
And those are exactly the jobs that recent grads used to take just to get a foot in the door. Like, you did the grunt work for 2 years to prove you could follow instructions and manage a workflow.
Exactly. But companies are now replacing those specific entry-level tasks with AI models that operate for, fractions of a cent. But here is the critical mismatch. The new requirement for employment is human-AI collaboration. Companies need people who know how to steer these models, verify their outputs, and integrate them into complex business processes.
But universities aren't teaching that.
No, they aren't. They are still churning out graduates trained to perform the exact tasks that software now executes automatically. It is a fundamental supply and demand failure in our educational infrastructure.
So basically, the market realizes AI is essentially a factory floor upgrade. It destroys old jobs, sure, but it creates new efficiencies for traditional companies. Hence, the money moves to the companies benefiting from the efficiency rather than just the ones building the tech.
Exactly. The value rotates.
Okay, but let's look at the ultimate stress test of market psychology happening right now. I'm talking about the SpaceX IPO.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the scale of this is just staggering. SpaceX is launching its roadshow on June 8, targeting a NASDAQ debut on June 12, And they are looking at a $1.75 trillion valuation.
Trillion. With a T. And the strategy they're using is fascinating, too. They are aggressively targeting retail investors, like the everyday people trading on their phones.
Right.
The CFO, Brett Johnson, told bankers that retail investors will represent a larger share of this IPO than any public offering in history. They are even hosting 1,500 retail investors at a post-roadshow event.
Which is wild.
They're heavily pushing this populist narrative, democratizing access to space.
And it is an incredibly unusual maneuver for an offering this large. Normally, institutional investors, the massive pension funds and banks, they swallow these mega IPOs whole.
Okay, I have to throw a flag on the play here.
Okay, go for it.
Are we really supposed to believe that this is about giving the little guy a VIP seat on the rocket? Because looking at the Motley Fool analysis published today, they're openly warning that retail investors might just be acting as, quote, exit liquidity.
Well, let's break down the mechanics of exit liquidity because it's absolutely vital to understand.
Please do.
The early investors in SpaceX, the venture capitalists and billionaires who funded it 10 or 15 years ago, their wealth is trapped in illiquid private shares. To turn that paper wealth into actual cash, they need someone to buy their shares at that massive $1.75 trillion valuation.
Okay, so they need a flood of buyers who are essentially blinded by the hype.
Yes, exactly. If institutional buyers look at that massive price tag and decide, hey, there isn't enough room for future growth here, the early investors can't cash out.
Right.
By whipping up a retail frenzy, they ensure there is a massive pool of eager buyers' liquidity, allowing the early institutional holders to exit with their billions. It is essentially a risk transfer mechanism. The risk is moving from the early billionaires directly onto the retail public.
Man. So we are watching risk being transferred and rules being completely rewritten in our political and financial systems.
Yeah.
But what happens when the actual, literal, physical hardware of our society gets pushed past its limits? Because reading through today's sources, the physical fatigue is just alarming.
The physical wear and tear is undeniable right now. The infrastructure just cannot hide the stress anymore.
Yeah.
Take the U.S. military. The aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford just arrived home in Norfolk after an 11-month deployment. That is the longest deployment for any U.S. aircraft carrier since the Vietnam War.
That's incredible.
You have 4,600 sailors functioning in a high-stress, high-alert environment for nearly a year.
And the machine itself is exhausted. I mean, the reports show the ship needs massive, deferred repairs, including a major overhaul of its sewage system. It literally cannot operate at that tempo anymore without breaking down.
And we are seeing that exact same fatigue in commercial aviation, too.
Oh, the Newark incident.
Right. The NTSB just released findings on a terrifying incident at Newark Liberty International Airport last month. A United Airlines 767 captain was flying too low and too slow on his approach. He physically struck a light pole and damaged a truck on the adjacent turnpike.
Wait, how does a highly trained captain flying a modern jetliner just miss the runway approach like that? That's terrifying.
It is, and the NTSB report points directly to a dangerous combination of severe pilot fatigue and the absence of automated approach monitoring systems.
So a human failed, and the tech wasn't there to catch him.
Exactly. The human element was pushed past its cognitive limit, and the technological safety net simply wasn't there. Aviation advocates are demanding mandatory rest period reforms, but the FAA has only been studying these automated systems. They haven't implemented them at major hubs yet.
So the regulatory system is lagging severely behind the reality of human limitation. It honestly feels like our entire physical infrastructure, whether it's the Navy's maintenance schedules, the FAA safety protocols, or even the power grid, is behaving like a smartphone battery that has been stuck on 1% for 3 hours.
Oh, that's exactly it.
Right. You are dimming the screen, you're closing apps, just praying it holds on a little longer. It is technically functioning, but one wrong tap and the whole phone dies.
That scales perfectly to the environmental data we are looking at today, too. The physical environment is under immense load.
Yeah, the heat is brutal.
The Gulf Coast, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi is just suffocating under a stubborn heat dome. They are facing heat index values nearing 110 degrees Fahrenheit through the weekend.
110, wow.
Emergency management agencies are having to extend cooling center hours because the grid and the human body simply cannot cool down at night.
And right above them, the Central Plains, specifically Kansas and Nebraska, are in exceptional drought. The U.S. Drought Monitor shows it covering over 60% of those states. Soil moisture is at multi-decade lows.
And here is how physical stress instantly becomes economic stress.
Okay, Connect the dots for us.
Agronomists are projecting that the winter wheat harvest in that region could drop by a third compared to normal yields.
A third.
A third. And when you wipe out a third of a staple crop, commodity markets immediately price in the scarcity. That means higher food prices at the grocery store by late summer. The physical environment directly forces a financial reaction.
And it forces a political reaction, too. Look at what the White House Office of Management and Budget is doing. The OMB is actively moving forward with a proposal to take greater control over how federal research grants are allocated.
Right.
They basically want to pull power away from independent, peer-reviewed scientific panels and give the executive branch more direct say in where the money goes, which is wild.
And why do you think that happens? What's fascinating here is when physical realities become highly volatile, like extreme weather or supply chain shocks bureaucracies, inherently try to centralize control.
Oh.
They want the power to direct funding to immediate, highly visible political solutions rather than slow, deliberate, peer-reviewed science. Naturally, research universities and scientific societies are fighting this fiercely.
We're seeing this clash between human development and physical reality globally, too.
Yeah.
Like, look at the Albanian coast. Jared Kushner is linked to this massive real estate development project there.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
The government claims it will revolutionize the national economy, but environmental advocates and opposition politicians are fighting it tooth and nail. It's the exact same core conflict, attempting to force aggressive economic growth onto an already stressed physical ecosystem.
There is one fascinating anomaly in the environmental data today, though.
Oh, what's that?
The 2026 Atlantic hurricane season is 4 days old, and it is completely dead. 0 named storms.
Really? Well, the National Hurricane Center is crediting El Niño conditions for that, right?
Yes, let's explain the mechanism there.
Yeah.
El Niño creates high wind shear across the Atlantic basin.
Okay.
Wind shear is essentially winds blowing at different speeds in different directions at varying altitudes. For a hurricane to form, it needs a calm, vertical chimney of air to build pressure. Wind shear physically rips the top off the storm before it can even organize.
Oh, that makes sense. And the telecom companies are actually taking advantage of this pause, which is smart. Major U.S. cell carriers are aggressively upgrading their emergency alert infrastructure right now, going way beyond the regulatory minimums after those recent network failures.
Which proves an important point, complex systems are capable of resilience and adaptation, but they require a pause in the pressure to actually implement the fix.
Right.
You cannot repair the bridge while the freight trucks are still driving over it.
Exactly. But humanity can't just hit pause on the global economy or the weather. When we are forced to endure this much collective, geopolitical stalemates, financial rotations, exhausted infrastructure, we tend to look for an escape hatch.
We do.
And today, the world is opening a massive one.
Yeah, the sports world is providing an unprecedented release valve right now. The FIFA World Cup 2026 officially opens today with ceremonies in Los Angeles.
Finally.
It's being played across 16 host cities in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico over the next month.
And the projections for this are just mind-bending. FIFA expects this to be the most watched sporting event in human history. They are estimating a global audience approaching 6 billion viewers.
6 billion? I mean, 6 billion people is roughly 3/4 of the human population.
That's almost unfathomable.
When you see a behavioral data point that massive, you really have to ask what is actually driving the action.
That's exactly my thought. You don't get 6 billion people to do anything simultaneously unless there is a deep underlying psychological drive. I mean, is this staggering projection really just about a love of soccer?
Right.
Or is it a collective, almost subconscious reaction to the fractures we've been tracking today? Like if the political, economic, and environmental systems feel completely out of our control, maybe we just desperately need to watch a game where everyone agrees on the exact dimensions of the field and the rules of play for 90 minutes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the economic data certainly supports that idea of compensatory escapism. People are willing to pay heavily for that structured narrative. Economists project a $5 billion direct economic impact across U.S. host cities.
Wow.
Dallas, New York, LA, and Miami are capturing massive surges in hotel, food, and retail spending. Fox Sports and Telemundo are reporting record-shattering ad revenue, and that's driven by huge Hispanic market demand, plus a U.S. soccer audience that has literally tripled since the 1994 tournament.
So people are basically voting with their wallets for a communal event.
Exactly.
The U.S. men's national team is hoping to leverage that massive home crowd energy too, especially playing at venues like AT&T Stadium in Dallas. But soccer isn't the only escape hatch delivering right now. The NBA Finals tipped off last night.
They did, and the Knicks absolutely stole Game 1 in San Antonio, winning 105-95.
The mechanics of that win were totally wild. The Knicks were trailing by 14 points in the third quarter.
I know, I was watching it.
And they closed out the game on an 11-0 run to secure their 12th consecutive playoff win.
Which puts them in elite historical company. That ties the '99 Spurs and the 2015 Warriors for the longest such streak in NBA history. Jalen Brunson dropping 30 points was the absolute engine of that comeback.
Oh, he was incredible. San Antonio didn't walk away completely empty-handed, though. I mean, their rookie Dylan Harper just set an NBA Finals record, becoming the youngest player in Finals history to score 16 points in a game. So the Spurs championship window looks wide open for the future.
For sure. But what is equally interesting about the NBA Finals is how people are actually choosing to watch it.
Oh, the alternate streams.
Yeah, ESPN's alternate broadcast strategy, specifically the Pat McAfee stream, is drawing record streaming viewership for a Finals opening game.
So even in how we consume our shared escapes, audiences are rotating away from the traditional buttoned-up broadcast. Like, they still want the communal event, but they want to consume it through a highly tailored conversational lens.
Exactly. The desire for new frameworks is everywhere right now.
Okay, let's step back and look at the whole board here. We started today analyzing shifting war alliances in Iran. We navigated through an AI-driven rotation in the stock market and the mechanics of a SpaceX IPO. We looked at the literal physical exhaustion of our military and aviation infrastructure, and we finally arrived at a 6 billion person sporting event.
Quite the journey.
Right. And for you listening, being well-informed isn't about memorizing today's Dow Jones numbers or the Knicks box score. It is about seeing the through line. These fundamental systems are bleeding into one another.
They really are, and understanding the mechanism of change is much more valuable than just memorizing the change itself.
Absolutely.
And to that end, I want to leave you with one final piece of the puzzle to consider.
Okay, what is it?
We spent time today discussing how human-AI collaboration is the new mandatory skill for college grads trying to secure an entry-level job.
Right.
But look at the sheer scale of the systemic failure we covered today. Geopolitical gridlock, exhausted pilots and failing power grids, bureaucratic infighting over climate response.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Perhaps human-AI collaboration isn't just a corporate buzzword for making data analysis faster. When you look at how hopelessly complex and strained our global infrastructure has become, maybe human-AI integration is the only functional way we're going to untangle these systems.
Wow.
Because right now, the human mind alone is clearly struggling to manage the load.
That is a staggering thought. If our global operating system is a smartphone stuck on 1% battery, maybe AI is the only charger we have left that actually fits the port.
It might be.
We will leave you to chew on that. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep questioning the mechanics of what you read, and we'll see you next time.